Sue. Six-pack Lapadat. We got Amelia Parter, Matt Gary. I don't know why I said your last name like that. If you fumbled in. But this is the men's U.S. Nationals recap show. And just like the women's, like we always do, we're going to start from the lightest and work our way to the heaviest. And of course, in the lightest is the 59 kilo class. Travis Pinheiro with 577.5 takes the U.S. national title with Alex Theomeyer with 500 kilos and Stephen Morel with 482.5, rounding out your podium. Of course, a reminder, Oscar Carpio at Sheffield solidified himself in the 59 kilo world spot. So he will be on the world team representing USA at IPF World Championships in June in Germany. I don't think there's any major surprises here in terms of the 59s. Travis had lifted in the morning session or afternoon session. He wasn't in prime time, if I remember correctly. Wasn't that right, Matt?
I believe so.
Yeah. But a sizable lead in. Look at 577.5. It's competitive globally. It's competitive. We're thinking this day and age in the 59 kilo class, you're going to have to be 600 kilos and up if you want a podium. Yeah. And when we look at Ivan from Spain, Antoine Garcia from France, all 600 and up, of course, Waskar. But, and again, we're not going to get pulled into the temptation of being a preview show for IPF Worlds, but Looky, who was also in the 59s nominated, Kasim Sand, the reigning 66 kilo world champion, is moving down to the 59s. 59s are getting spicy. They're getting spicy. But anyways, any major notes we want to talk about the 59s? Obviously, it wasn't any major battle. Travis clinching the spot in the session off of prime time, and a spot. When I say spot, of course, I mean clinching the national title, but not the world team spot. Any other notes, or should we move into the 66s? All right, let's move into the 66s because my freaking goodness. I had my DMs being lit up saying, you need to get Avery Jackson on that podcast because we got to know who the heck is that guy. Avery Jackson, talk about a coming out party for that young man. 9 for 9, 720 in a day that Jonathan Garcia also went 9 for 9. Jonathan Garcia also had a total PR. Jonathan Garcia did not have a bad day. This is the best we'd ever seen Jonathan Garcia. Didn't miss a single lift. And still, Avery Jackson with 720 upset him with this final pull of 297.5. Now, Avery Jackson is so relatively new to the scene. He's aware of who Jonathan Garcia is. He's aware of some of these other lifters, but he doesn't. If you went down division by division, all the world champions and all the best of the best, he's relatively green to all this. As a matter of fact, when I met him backstage and I said, my man, we got to do a podcast. Are you around tomorrow to do a live in studio podcast with me? He said, absolutely. Sorry, what's your name? My man, and he follows King of the Lifts. He just never had met me in person and knew who I was. And I'm like, my name's Ryan. I'm King of the Lifts. I do the commentary. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, all right. And I checked, and yeah,
I love it.
I love it too. He's like, look, I'm into powerlifting. I power lift, but I don't even know necessarily who's who, and it's all kind of new to me. And sometimes ignorance is bliss when it comes to pressure, when it comes to things like expectations. He told me that going in, he thought he'd be off podium, and during, he thought his final pull, which he had a huge celebration, and it looked like he was full on aware of what he had just accomplished, which was a massive total, huge upset in a world team spot. And he actually celebrated like that because he thought he came in fourth and had a great day. He had no idea. No. You just upset Jonathan Garcia, returning champion, former world record holder, two-time world's medalist. You just made a huge upset on a grizzled veteran who has an outstanding powerlifting resume and clinched your world team spot and you're going to the world championships, young man. He had no idea. until he got to the back. And when he finally found out, I went to the back warm up room and I seen Avery, and my man had like his eyes were watering up. Like it was so overwhelming. The next day on the podcast, live in studio, I asked him, how does it feel to be not only a national champion, but defeating head to head a phenomenal lifter like Jonathan Garcia, whom's pedigree I already said is undeniable, and knowing you're going to represent your nation at the world championships? And he's like, I'm still processing it. It still doesn't seem real. He still doesn't know how to take it all in. So huge, sometimes at these national championships, sometimes at any of these powerlifting competitions, people just emerge. You don't see them coming. They just freaking emerge. And we seen him emerging. He had a big squat, big bench, but by the time it rounded out and he was pulling for the win, I mean, Amelia, you were calling it with me. What can you say about the 66s and the emergence of Avery Action Jackson?
It was it was amazing. And we kind of said from early-ish, not really like right at the beginning of the competition, we kind of looked at each other and were like, I think this Avery kid is someone who might be a bit of a dark horse. We'll keep an eye on him. And we weren't really sure how much weight what we said there had in terms of like what that was foreshadowing. Obviously, big fan of him already, having him humble you like that. Big fan of anyone who's able to do that. Um,
Yes, thank
but
you.
you know, but no, it was amazing. And the thing is, I think there's, it was such a perfect example of sport in that, Jonathan and Joey Flex kind of perhaps knew they were being pressed slightly, but not quite as much. So paced themselves a little bit. Like you said, he had a great day and he PB'd and he Garcia had, you know, a huge total of 718, which I think on any other day would have wiped the floor. But with this emergence of Avery, I think they paced themselves a little too softly. And like you said, hindsight is 2020, and as Matt said, but positions and medals aren't won that way. And it's I think it's interesting to look back at it in terms of sport viewership of how that would have panned out differently if, maybe Avery was considered by everybody else there as a threat because he just certainly snuck up on us. And that makes for such an exciting, competition to watch. And yeah, like you said, Brian, he had no idea he was he was pulling for the win, which just made it that much more special. And I just don't think he can maybe fly so far under the radar now heading into Worlds where he's going to be met by some fierce names.
Just to give like a little bit of context. So 707.5 was the total that had all three gentlemen on the podium at Worlds. And Garcia and Avery, 718 and 720. Like they had an absolute phenomenal day. And to Garcia and Joey Flex's defense, like 718 going in sounded like a number that could have won it for me. I mean, you knew you needed to build a big subtotal and then hang on to your deadlifts. But you also knew some of these people, like Avery was coming over from USPA. We're talking 24-hour weigh-ins, deadlift bar. There's so many intangibles. Very difficult to read where exactly he's going to be. You're somewhat kind of sort of guessing. And he had never been in a battle with this many eyeballs watching. It's a whole nother ball game when this happens. You don't know which way it's going to swing. So if you're Garcia and Joey Flex, you're thinking, well, 718 should just about do it. If you think you have a few more kilos in you, you could press and load it up. But what if you miss? If 718 is a 75% chance and you clinch it, if you would have told me going into the nationals, I would have thought, yeah, that should win it. That should probably be about good, looking at the gentlemen that are there. So I don't begrudge them at all for their attempt selection. It is 2020 hindsight. So now when you look back and be like, did we have a little bit more here? Did we have a little bit more there? Maybe, but you wouldn't have thought Avery was going to show up like that, or you might have, but there were so many question marks around it. Avery himself wasn't expecting that. And if you're going to play that game with Jonathan and Joey, Avery would also say, yeah, but also probably had some more kilos here and there. Do you want to add 3 or 4 more kilos onto this lift or that lift for you? Do the same for me. Because I feel like I probably, on that given day, God knows what my top end ceiling would have been. So close battle. Jonathan Garcia can keep his head up. Phenomenal performance. He's not going to go to IPF Worlds, but he's obviously world class. 720 is obviously world class. You have Shell and now Avery who could do more than that. Maybe 2 people in the entire flipping world can do more than that. Now, I'm not saying a guy like, obviously Penna can't. Penna's real close to that himself. He's an over that with, albeit a heavier body weight before. Like all those guys, they're all very close, except for Shell, right? He's broken ahead of the pack. But Jonathan Garcia is right up in that pack to podium at Worlds. He's just not going to make it that far because we have Avery Jackson. And I tell you what, I'm interested. How far can this kid go? How many more kilos can he add on to his total by the time the World Championships rolls around? Or next year, the year after that? He's young. He's relatively new to the stage. Well, he is definitely new to the stage. Not relatively. He straight up is. He's got a lot he can go. He's already improved so much. He can improve even more. Matt, how impressed are you with Avery Jackson? 9 for 9, the attempt selection, the way it all played out. You're the game day goat. What's your impressions of this?
Just astounded. I mean, I admittedly had never even heard of this guy until the competition. So, I mean, I had zero data, zero knowledge of him. I didn't have a horse in this race during that session. So I admittedly didn't do a whole ton of research on them. So, you kind of look up at the start list there and you see Jonathan and Morgan tied, on openers at 655 kilos. And then you're like, who's this Avery kid at 640? And it kind of raises some eyebrows. And I think also, admittedly, because Avery's bench is, significantly weaker than Jonathan's and Morgan, it's almost like you get lulled to sleep there a little bit. He squats well, but then you're like, the bench is, not really on par with the other guys. And then all of a sudden he comes, roaring back in the deadlift. So I mean, an extraordinary performance, the performance of a lifetime when it matters most, at an IPF affiliate competition with the 2-hour weigh-in, to your point, Ryan, strict standards, no deadlift bar, these sorts of things. And then he's able to put together just an unbelievable performance and unseat the national champion to the tune of a 720 kilo total, which, oh, by the way, only 3 people have ever achieved in the 66s. There's only been 3 people who have gone 720 and up. So now, fast forwarding to, I guess, Worlds a little bit, he's nominated with the 3rd best total. And so, just an extraordinary performance. And I think, to your point, you wonder if Jonathan had more. I mean, first of all, Jonathan's, let's just talk about his bench press for a second. Jonathan hit a humongous bench press PB to the tune of 185.5, which was an American record, and just extraordinary. And if I recall correctly, that lift looked quite easy. But again, sometimes you don't know how strong you are. And that was the case at Worlds. Jonathan hit a bench PB at Worlds, and we're like, holy crap, that wasn't on our bingo card, so to speak. We didn't realize he was that strong. Well, he did that again. So it's almost like, I don't know, if you are regrouping a little bit, if your team Garcia and you've got Joseph and Garcia kind of going back into the lab, maybe you're like, look, clearly we're that subtotal kind of lifter, where we front load our total. Maybe because, his deadlift is his Achilles heel, that is his weakness. They have to be maybe even more aggressive. They have to let the rope out just even a little bit more and take a bigger swing, but sometimes you just don't know how much you have. So anyway, it was just a phenomenal battle. Little bit, one of the things, if you're looking at the scoring sheet also, Ryan and Amelia, is there was only one missed lift from the top 4 lifters, and that was Morgan Garcia missed his final deadlift. So it's exciting to see a lot of green up on the scoreboard. We like to see that as coaches. I think it's fun also as commentators. I don't want to speak for you, but it's fun when lifters are making lifts, right? It makes it exciting. It's like the cream is rising to the top, and and there's a little bit more jockeying for position. When everybody's crashing, burning, and there's this bloodbath or this sea of red on the scoreboard, it's kind of like people are falling by the wayside. But when you have people making a lot of lifts, it makes it really exciting for the audience to see. So I was excited to see that. A little bit curious just about Morgan's attempt selection there, just really tiny, small jumps, just kind of looking back and just not understanding the full story there. I don't have the context. You've just got a 240 squatter who's jumping 5 kilos and then 2.5, and that's a little bit curious to me. And so, clearly Morgan went in there for he put the 290 on the bar at the end, which would have given him a 700 kilo total and third on the podium. But that attempt selection is just a little bit curious for me. Don't know the story there. But all in all, just a phenomenal performance. Again, don't necessarily want to say a changing of the guard, but some new faces on the national team. And I think that's always exciting.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Garcia weighs 145 pounds. The man squats 600 pounds.
Yeah.
The man bench presses over 400. Like, Jonathan Garcia's subtotal is insane.
It's insane.
Who the frick is 145 pounds squatting over 6 and benching over 4? Talk about a humbling. And his deadlift, while not up to snuff with world-class 66s, is serviceable with 260. I mean, that's how you get to a 718. It's
right. It's not a bad deadlift. It's just that the other gentlemen in the 66 kilos are pulling more than you. That's all. A 573, a 260 kilo deadlift for a 145 pound man is extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's just that against the rest of the field, that is your weakness. And it opens the door for these other guys to pull after you. And that's exactly what Avery did. And so, yeah, it was just an extraordinary competition and a lot of fun to watch.
And Austin Nikolai clinching the bronze medal was 690. And as you had already said, with Morgan looking to bump up over there and further even past that, actually, to try to pull for 700 kilos, even missing on that. And Austin also going 9 for 9 on that day. Anything else before we move to the 74s? Let's move into the 74s now. Obviously, Austin Perkins has the world team spot based off of his performance at Sheffield by a country mile. But Zachary Discostanzo, hopefully I said that name right. Did I? Discostanzo?
DiCostanzo. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. 745 or 742 and a half. Did a pretty big 17.5 kilo jump for his last pull. Missed his third squat, missed his third pull. He has previously done 760, which is world class. Perk isn't around. This young man's going to worlds. And if you take a look at the world championships in terms of nominations, sorry, here's I pull this up.
Yeah, that would have landed him. It would have been third.
Nominated third. Thank you. So he's a world-class lifter himself. It just so happens that perhaps the pound for pound best in the world is in his division. But if he's not going to worlds, he's still clinching national titles like he just did at U.S. Nationals. Phenomenal lifter. I mean, hats off to Zach. Great. He misses third squat, misses third dead. There's more kilos there. We'll see him again. He can make now a North American team. He could be at SBD Austin, and this is where he could show out. If you're in the 74 kilo class and you're in late 700s, you're in phenomenal footing. How many 74s are even above 800 kilos? You got Shell and you got Perk. And Shell and Perk are, Hall of Famers. The moment they retire, they're first ballot Hall of Famers in my book. So Zach is right up in there with the best of the best all over the world. And we'll see what happens with him moving forward. Also beneath him, of course, Noah Robinson, followed by Cole Elham, and there was a spread. Zach had a 42.5 kilo spread over Noah, and then Noah had 25 kilo spread over Cole. So no major battles there except for the bronze medal position, in which Derek Logrande finished with 672.5, just 2.5 kilos beneath Cole. Interesting enough, if he had just put on 2.5 kilos on his final pull, perhaps because he had lighter body weight, he would have tied on total and been on the podium on body weight. But coulda, shoulda, woulda. He was pulling before Cole did, and Cole probably would have lowered his 280 if threatened, and could have been a different story there as well. So again, 2020 hindsight, it is what it is. But any notes do you guys want to add to the 74s, or should we move to the battle of the 83s? Holy freaking smokes. This, 93s was amazing. And I've had people go back and forth with me asking which was the better battle. And it's a bit of a debate here. I think the 93s didn't have the clear favorite that the 83s did. I think going in, most people thought this is Joey B's to lose. And surprise, surprise, he won. The reason why, though, the 83s was special, we didn't know if he would need 900 kilos. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. There's so much to unpack in the battle of the 83s. But he ends off with 900 kilos. And yes, he damn near did need it. Taylor Atwood loaded up on his last pull. He didn't get his last pull. But Amelia, me and you thought on the commentary, this was no Hail Mary. And everybody thought, no, this is with Taylor, and Joey B said himself, if this breaks the ground, he could get it. It didn't break the ground. And sometimes when something doesn't break the ground, you think, wow, it was just tug, wave to the crowd. I'm just happy. I'm gotta load it up. That wasn't the case with Taylor. And it needs to be said, on a day like that day, nobody else could press Joey B. Everyone else had to concede, Joey, you won. Everybody else had to do so. And battle it out for a podium finish, battle it out amongst each other. 900 kilos on this day, with all due respect, too much for me to handle. Joey, this is yours. And only Taylor Atwood raised his hand and said, I'll contest you on that. I'll see your 900. And he loaded up for the win. That's why Taylor's the GOAT. And again, that final pull, that final ask wasn't crazy. That wasn't a beyond the means. By all means, that was right. Talk about a phenomenal freaking showing by both Joey B for 900 kilos, living up to the hype. A lot of people we had talked about, is he going to hit 900 kilos? Does he need 900 kilos to win? As it were, I don't know where Taylor would have been if he didn't have to load up on that final pull and he was just looking to round off. This is a local meet. Round off your biggest possible total on the day. Because he ended up with 876. And a freaking reminder, that is the biggest total we'd ever seen if Joey B doesn't live. If Joey B's gone from existence and he never existed, Taylor Atwood would have had the biggest total we've ever seen in the 83s. Period. Full stop. And Joey B on the podcast, live in studio, said, I firmly believe Taylor Atwood is not just the second strongest 83 alive, but the second strongest 83 kilo lifter, period, ever. I think he would, if he went toe to toe with Russ, I would put my money on Taylor. That is huge praise. Because I asked him, how much does it mean to go head to head with Taylor Atwood? And it was Taylor Atwood pressing you. And he's like, it essentially means everything. Totally, it's a huge deal to be going head to head with Taylor. And again, yeah, Russ was just this close to 883 at Sheffield. What Taylor might have had if he didn't have to load up for over 900 kilos, a 901 total. I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal performance by both those men. I can't believe an 83 kilo junior just totaled 900 kilos. What the heck? What world are we living in? This is the simulation. This is crazy. When he's 30, what is he going to be totaling? And here's another thing. Let me also throw this. I can't believe how thick that kid is in real life. I've had people message me and be like, I mean, you have guys like Russell or he walking around in the 83s and he's like impossibly jacked, right? When you meet Joey B in person, this kid is like a walking little house. He is super duper thick. And when I had Taylor on the in studio podcast, and I said, not only was this a generational battle, it was like a David versus Goliath battle. Because my man, he looks like he's twice your size. And Taylor went in the direction of what? We're eyeball to eyeball. He's not that much taller. And I let him go on it because it's kind of funny. But I actually meant, no, not in height. They're relatively same height. But there's no question Joey B is way thicker. Joey B looks like he's a 93. Like Joey B, I know previously he was a 75. He'll never make that weight class ever again. He is He's growing at an astounding rate. I mean, he's 22. He just turned 22. This is what happens when you're young and you're lifting weights. What's the side effect of lifting weights? You're going to put on some bulk and muscle. But this was when you see these gentlemen side by side, David versus Goliath, generational battle. I absolutely loved. Marcellus had that post I reposted that showed when Taylor won his first national title, Joey B was in fifth grade. The JVs and these two are battling it out on the platform. I don't freaking know. I know there's a lot of other things to unpack here for the 83s. A lot of people had great, there's battles all over the place. The reemergence of Sean Noriega, he had a phenomenal day. Delaney Wallace, 25 kilo PR. Chris Perez didn't have a great day. He was injured and he came in keeping everybody's expectations there. Angelo started off absolutely amazing with 320. The bench press strength is 100% gone up, didn't show up on the day. 175 for a second attempt. I co-signed that decision. Based off of 182 and a half, 175 should have been there. It wasn't. Not sure what the heck happened, but there's no question his bench has gone up. It wasn't indicative what happened on that day is where his bench actually is, which again, of course, will force your hand in the deadlifts to have to load up, pull you out of pocket, and whatever. It is what it is. But he leveled up. All these 83s leveling up. Amelia, what are your thoughts on all of this? We gotta go around the table on this one. We gotta sit on this one. There's too much to talk about.
Yeah, this was, I think, one of, if not, no, I would say this was the most highly anticipated weight class, of the entire nationals. With Taylor going up, with Joey B, having that first kind of open national performance, facing against, goats like Taylor, you have Delaney, like you said, return of Sean Noriega, Angelo. It was. I'll say often when a weight class is really very hyped up, it can lead to disappointment in the delivery of the fight. And this certainly didn't. It was really exciting the whole way through. And there was a point in time where we could see the top three separating somewhat. Actually, top four, Sean really had a phenomenal day. It was, he put up some incredible numbers, but at the end of the day, it did end up a bit of a Joey versus Taylor battle. And like you said, Taylor's last deadlift wasn't overzealous or overambitious. Like we thought there was absolutely a chance of him getting that, and I think it would have landed him at that 901 to beat Joseph. Which is absolutely incredible. And I chatted to Taylor afterwards and I was like, that was amazing. How are you feeling? And he was like, I feel great. I just wish that deadlift broke the ground. And which is, completely fair enough. But the fact that he within a year has gone up a weight class and put so much onto his total is insane. I remember talking to him at last Sheffield when he was there doing some of the media stuff about he was thinking about going up from 74s to 83s, and to see him kind of make that decision and to do so and to be so successful, it doesn't always work out that way for athletes when they make a big choice like that. I look forward to seeing the battle between the 83s, globally. Of course, there are huge, huge names, and that's a whole other story. But just nationally for powerlifting American nationals, already you could take the top 4 or 5 83s from this nationals, and they could fight for podium internationally, which just goes to show the amazing standard of the 83s for the USA. And to Taylor's credit, Joey B does look like a 93, but you can definitely tell Taylor is now up a weight class as well. He's
I
put
look
on
at you.
some.
You're just saying that because he was like, yo, Amelia's delts, popping in that one photo. So you're trying to big up him back. I got you. I got
That's
you. I
what you
see
see
you.
that one photo. It wasn't just one photo, Ryan. You were just upset I out angled you. I'm just going to
Okay,
say
all right,
that.
all right.
If anyone needs the proof, I've got it. But no, it was a wicked fight, and I wish I could see it again because honestly, on another day, maybe that turns out differently. A lot of people were saying, and this is a good place to end my comments on, and maybe throw it back to you, Ryan, or you, Matt, and your thoughts on this. But a lot of people were saying to me that, Joey's second deadlift, getting him to 900 with that. He came out, I think he put 400 on, then shook everyone's hands and finished the day there. Um, you know, there was speculation that if Taylor got that 901, would Joey B have had another pull in him to surpass that 901? I don't know what the answer is to that, but I heard that floating around, and I'd like to hear maybe what you guys think.
So I'm gonna throw this to Matt. Let me throw a couple things out there. First off, I got a couple I got a couple things I want to tee Matt up with, and you're hitting it right on the nail on the head. What I was going to tee Matt up with 377.5. Joey B said in the live studio podcast that was hard. I mean, anyone who watched that was a limit lift, and he came out and he knew. He said on the live podcast, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially, Taylor hits this, I might be cooked. Like I'm going to come out and I'm going to pull again. But holy smokes, 377.5 was limit. Did he have more on that second? He might have had a couple more kilos, but he would have to retake it. Did he have more on that second? But to come out again and do it all over again plus more is a whole nother deal. Taylor almost cooked him. Taylor, and he also said, Joey B, if Taylor broke the ground with it, I probably was done because Taylor, that's where Taylor either he gets it or he doesn't. If Taylor broke ground, he was going to finish it. That's what Joey B was saying. So this whole if Taylor broke ground, yeah, but that might have been it. And Joey B himself would have been like, oh, might have cooked myself. Might have not played that. We might have been talking on this podcast saying that second attempt, total fumbled the ball for him and line Taylor up for the win in massive upset. A couple things. Let's couple things here. I remember before this, Joey B being on the podcast. This is like summer of, etc. And him saying, I was talking about, Perk, and Perk previously 851. If he moved up to 83, he could go head to head with Russ. It'd be a great battle, etc. And I was like, what do you think about Perk moving up? And Joey B's like, we could essentially kill all that talk. Perk, if we're going to go head to head, it's got to be on some points or whatever. You don't want to come to 83 now. Like this talk about the smaller man beating up the bigger weight class is over now that I'm here. 900 kilos. Yeah, that talk is done. Okay, you need to bulk up like Taylor, but you're not coming up as a small 74, and your 74 kilo total will outweigh the weight class up, or even in contention of within 10 keys. That's not happening anymore. Now the 83s are leveled up. That's dead. And I like seeing weight classes level up. So the weight class below can't have that conversation. I like that. Also, other talk that's got to be deaded, and is people who were throwing dirt on Taylor's coffin and getting the flowers ready. Where you at now? Huh? This guy, when he did what was it, 830, 840, whatever I think is 830 last year, and he looked into the camera and he was like cussing out the camera saying, what's up now? It's because the last two performances that he had, World Sheffield, when he's heavily injured, and everyone's just kicking dirt in his eye. And then a year and a half off, him talking about coming back and everybody's just kicking dirt in his eye. That's the greatest of all. If you don't believe it's the greatest of all time, at least you got to say the best of our generation you're talking about. And for a lot of people, I get to Chico said, look, I'm young. I missed Taylor's prime, and everyone talks about him. That's the GOAT. That's the GOAT. Everyone talks like that. The people who are around to see it talk like that. Winning best lifter at IPF Worlds, taking all three formulas. That's undisputed. What do you want? Do you want to judge it on titles? He had it. Do you want to judge it on best lifter in comp? He had it. Do you want to judge it on formulas? He had all of them. That was it. There was Taylor, and that was it. Okay, we haven't seen anyone do that since. And younger generation coming in and missing that and having other people forgot kicking dirt on the goat's grave. It's wild, disrespectful. What are you saying now? What are you saying now? And for anyone who didn't know, now you know. That's why. That's why Taylor Atwood's the GOAT, where he's however many years removed from his prime, father, dealing with all of these injuries, coming back, and he's the only one that could press Joey B like that. And he steps up. and Taylor goes out on his freaking shield. Yes, he does. He loads up for the win. And everyone else wants to concede. He ain't conceding shit. He's going to load up. God bless. I'm glad he was there. But I want to get Matt, maybe you could chime in on your thoughts, how the battle occurred with 377 by Joey B. And when you saw the attempt selection, they would give him 900. When you saw how difficult it was, and then Taylor load up, and oh my gosh, how might this occur? Looking back at other decisions like Delaney, look at Joey B, whenever I bring up Taylor and people bring up Taylor, he's like, yeah, but let's also bring up Delaney because he's also a phenomenal lifter, two-time world champ. Delaney ending up on the podium in a sensational battle himself. And if Delaney hadn't put on 320, the only lift he missed was that 320 squat. And that wasn't unreasonable either. 2020 hindsight. We knew, look at if Angelo had gotten the bench that he wanted, he wouldn't have had to do the deadlift that he had to end up doing. Angelo would have been neck and neck with him. I 100% believe that. So Delaney loading up 320, he was trying to keep pace with Angelo. And then Sean Noriega jumping off like he did. Like, I understand the reasoning. It was in the wheelhouse. But if he just was 2.5 kilos less, throw that 7.5 kilos onto Delaney, and he's right up into the 870s. He's neck and neck with Taylor all of a sudden. He's bypassed the best that Russ has ever done. Delaney Wallace is one of the greatest 83 kilos of all time. Delaney Wallace is just right there with a bit of changement on the temp selection. Then, of course, underneath him, Sean Noriega, phenomenal day, just missing his last deadlift right at lockout, which would have put him on the podium right at lockout. Sean Noriega reemerges, one of the greatest 83s of all time. I mean, it's crazy, let alone Angelo, his total of 835, definitely stronger than 835. Like I said, the bench press, I'm not sure what the heck happened. If bench actually went off the way his prep was indicating, everything could have changed in terms of the attempt selection he would have needed. Those gentlemen, from Joey B right down to Angelo, insanely strong, the best among the best 83s in the world. But Matt, if you pull up the attempts, you take a look at this, give me your thoughts from the game day positioning of it and how the battle unfolded.
Yeah, there's a lot to chew on here, and I guess a lot to comment on. It's kind of hard to know where to start. I guess I'll kind of start lower down and then kind of work my way up. Sure. Clearly, yeah, Angelo totaling 835, that tied his PB total. So yeah, to your point, Ryan, more meat on the bone there. Clearly, you don't begrudge him for taking the 175. We don't know what happened in the bench. We all saw the 182.5 in the gym, and he had to make the choice that he made on his final deadlift. He had to load up to kind of be relevant there, to get into the podium position and so forth with that last pull. But yeah, so he's clearly all of these top 5 lifters, all of them. You know, I mean, if there is such a thing as leveling up for Bornstein, but you know, everybody's leveled up. All of them have gotten better. World-class athletes, all of them, just extraordinary performances, even with the misses. So Angelo only at 835, I say only. Well, that tied his PB total. And then Sean Noriega, really nice to see in the past 2 performances that the inconsistency, you know, the erratic lifting is seemingly gone, or at least in the last 2 performances, it's been gone. You know, we all know he's got the wide stance squat and deadlift, and obviously the wide high arch bench and so forth. Well, so in the last 2 performances, that's been gone, and he's been absolutely pristine, meeting the standard in every way, hitting a lot of attempts, not taking himself out of the mix early with missed lifts. And so, yeah, loading up for 352 on the last pull. And oh, by the way, already has a 7.5 kilo PB total, even with that last miss. And had he made the last attempt, Ryan, that would have put him on the podium, you know, just behind Taylor. And then to your point, Ryan, with Delaney Wallace, I mean, just, yeah, class act, supreme level lifter, to IPF world champion 2 times, and has clearly leveled up himself from the Raleigh performance, and now again with the lone miss in that 3rd squat. And you don't, you know, like you said, you don't begrudge them taking that number. It's kind of, there's going to be risk involved with every single attempt. You know, it seems like you only have 9 opportunities to score points and to score kilos. And so all of them are trying to maximize their totals there. And sometimes it's just, you know, you wind up taking 2.5 too much, but it's like, then the flip side of that coin is well, what if he made it? Then he's got those
Yeah.
10 kilos. And so it's like, now we're talking about a different story. Now he's on 877.5, and maybe Taylor's making some different decisions, this, that,
Right.
and the other. So
Right.
it's
You
just
have to.
like,
Yeah.
you have to. You've got to swing. You've got to fight with all these supreme level athletes. And then to your point, Amelia, and Ryan both, it began to kind of emerge after subtotal and so forth. It began to appear like it is a 2-horse race here. You know what I mean? And you've got the legendary, the GOAT, Taylor Atwood, who's got not going down without a fight. And I was surprised to see when I looked at the start list and the attempts. I don't ever get sticker shock. I think that's something that you learn if you've been competing long enough. You don't get sticker shock. I looked up and I saw that Joe Bornstein's opener was 330 originally in the deadlift. And so I thought, that feels a little low given what we've seen, from Instagram and what he's done in training. So I'm like, but when they bumped it to 355, I was like, holy smokes, like that's a huge bump. Typically when you bump an opener, it's not to the tune of 25 kilos. So that, like, admittedly just kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, holy crap, he bumped his opener 25 kilos. And then for him to go all in on the second was, that's as high risk, high reward as it gets, right? And I think, again, I don't want to speak for Joe. I've listened to the podcast and so forth. He's got that self-belief. He's got that it, if you will. Clearly, he believed in himself. He felt like that attempt was there. It's not something that I would advise, just because it's one of those, as we saw, it's those on the line second attempts where, to your point, Ryan, I actually do think that he probably had 2.5, maybe 5 left on that second attempt, but I do not believe he had a third attempt in him. I do not. And so had Taylor, to your point, had Taylor made that 367.5, and God bless Taylor for putting that on the bar, because there is no other number to take. That is the number we're taking. We are going for the win. We didn't come here to come in second, right? We hit a huge squat at 317.5. They let the rope out there. Taylor probably had a few more kilos in the bench. Likewise, Joe, a few more kilos in the bench. But he's going out on his shield, and that's the only number that he had to take. Joe Bornstein is lucky that Taylor Atwood didn't break the floor with that, because I do not think that Joe would have been able to come back and repeat that deadlift, to the tune of having to lift, 2.5 kilos more or whatever. I just don't. It seemed to me like it was untidy. It was tough. That 377 was a tough deadlift. But hey, to the victor go the spoils, right? High risk, high reward. He said, I'm pushing it all to the center of the table. And I think there's a little bit there with the fact that it did put him at 900. And there's the allure, there's the sexiness, there's the getting almost seduced into that number, right? It's just this other worldly number that we've seen, that we've not even thought that we've all thought possible. And so but credit to him. He pushed all of his chips to the center of the table, and it worked. And now he's the national champion, and he's on the national team. And now he's got to take that performance, and now he's got to go abroad. And so he's got to travel with it. He's got to make weight, and he's got to do it on a higher standard with stricter judging against, a murderer's row that's waiting for him in the international 83s. But just an exceptional competition, just extraordinary. So many players in this, drama, if you will, that just unfolded, and it was really exciting to see. I think to Amelia's point, I do believe that this was the most anticipated battle. We're going to get to it. I think the 93s were better, just because we'll get to that. I'm not going to bury that, but I think this was the most anticipated, but I think the 93s was better. But fireworks all across, and just hats off to all these people for putting on a show, and for everybody kind of putting their best foot forward, and just extraordinary.
The reason why you might say lean towards the 83s in terms of favorite battles, because milestone unlocked with 900 kilos. And then the generational storyline, people love that kind of stuff. Like I had dropped the George Foreman podcast and the KOTL After Dark. And the reason why that is because of the generational battle that was. And we had our own here with Taylor, his first national title. Joey B was in the 5th grade. Like, it's the craziest. People love seeing that in the comeback story that was. And you're 100% right. Let's see Joey B take this on the road, go internationally, international level judging, travel, the whole nine. It's gonna be all different, as well as you almost got caught. You almost got caught. Be careful at Worlds. I love how it all played out. 900 kilos is magical. And it actually opening the door for Taylor to take a swing at him made it even better. It really did. I'm sure Joey B's parents were having anxiety attacks just watching that. And but because of how crazy it was better that way. But at Worlds, don't care about round numbers. You hit 900, you did it domestically, that's fine. Throw that back and just freaking win the world title. Okay, you got to focus here. Don't go overzealous on your second attempt. Your second attempt is not your third attempt. Use all 3 deadlift attempts. You got monsters out there. You aren't pulling last. You got Anahoro out there. You got guys like Ade, and we haven't seen the top end of Ade. And you got wily veterans like Jurens. Look, I'm not going to go through the whole freaking nomination list on you, but these guys are killers. You got to be careful. Anyways, all that being said, holy freaking smokes, with 83 is good. I'm super duper happy that it all ended up the way it did. And again, Taylor was like, man, the way people are treating me, I almost feel you got to remind me who won again. It's like, did I lose? Like, Taylor, he didn't win, but he didn't lose. He didn't win, but he didn't lose. Joey B won big, no question about it. But Taylor also, in a lot of rights, won as well, and it improved upon his legacy.
Yeah, and I think also just to add one final thing, just credit to Taylor, because I'm close friends with Taylor and so forth. I mean, look, had he put something on the bar, that wasn't going for the win, where does he land? He's in the 890s probably somewhere, or top, or whatever, high 880s and 890s. So, and this is his first kind of real go at 83. Yeah, we saw the meet that he did up in Boston to kind of get a qualifying total for Powerlifting American Nationals. But there is a lot left in the tank, and that's exciting. Not only for Taylor, but for this whole weight class, because presumably they'll have to come back and do it again next year. And that everybody leveled up, and we should anticipate another leveling up. And I just think it's good. It's good for sport. So it's exciting.
Let's move into the 93s. I just did a podcast with Jonathan Keiko. I'm going to drop it later on this week. I'll drop this podcast first. Heiko said this is the first time in a long time he was pain-free and 100%. He took a step back after the last Sheffield he was at. The pain was getting the better of him. Not even just in performance-wise, even in his day-to-day, he was feeling pain. He said he described himself as, feeling pain day to day, your anger levels and how you even carry yourself was affecting his personal life. He was getting so bad. But the pressure of, look, you're in your prime, a young man, your athletic prime is only so long. So to compete, show up, keep competing. And he said it was so bad that at that Sheffield, had he won at his last Sheffield performance, he likely would have put his wraps on the platform and retired right there on the spot, because the pain was excruciating, because he lost. He didn't want to go out on that note. And he actually took a step back, took a year off, 3 months, didn't lift a single weight. A year later, comes back, and that step back was just to get a running start. And here we are, it's the biggest 93 kilo total we've ever seen. He looked like he had kilos to spare in there. On top of that, more than likely, we're going to see 10 times body weight at Worlds with Emil and Gustav pushing, because they're both at 915, 917 and a half. But Jonathan Keiko, in a super close battle with the 93s, you had the big 3 between him and Petrie, but then you also had Dom, you had Meach, you had Brendan Jones, you had another 3 underneath them. And we knew with the battle this close, if anybody misses, somebody else from the 3 beneath them could end up on the platform. That's exactly what ended up happening. And in a battle of the big 3, he's the only one to go 9 for 9, and he clinched the title. He did what Jonathan Keiko does, and he clinched a title probably with some room to spare, it looks like. But a sensational battle. Amelia, what are your thoughts on the 93s?
Yeah, the 93s were an incredible fight. To what Matt said earlier, the 83 is the most highly anticipated, and 93s, could definitely fight for that spot of the best fight for sure. Between the two, it was incredible. And I love the story of Jonathan taking 3 months off, taking a year off competing, 3 months off lifting, because I think there are so many athletes that are out there that experience injury and burnout, and they're afraid to take time off because that what that might do to their strength and what that might do to their relationship with the sport or whatever that might look like. And I think Jonathan has shown people that you can step back to step forwards, and I think that's a really great message to not just younger lifters but lifters in general. The fight was amazing. We saw the healthiest and strongest Kaiko that we've ever seen. Finishing with 919.5 is outrageous, and like it didn't look like top end for him. It was amazing to see him without fire under him. Um, Petrie ended up pulling for that win. He had to load, I think it was 389.5, which got to his knees, which is incredible in itself that he managed to do that. And again, it really did come down to that final pull. You can't say that that was any more of a Hail Mary than Taylor's because he got it moving. And it was a really phenomenal fight. But like you said, we saw other huge things. We saw Gavin fall off of the podium, ending up in fourth with 891.5, with Dominique Fuqua ending in bronze. Gavin hit the national squat record, which of course is an unofficial world squat record. And he put, I think, about 5 kilos on top of the world record in terms of unofficially, because I think he knew that he would have had the pressure of Jamar Royster squatting in the same flight as him as well, who unfortunately on his second attempt, I chatted to him afterwards, the bar kind of rolled, and he tweaked his back a little bit on that second attempt.
Mm.
He reattempted it on his third, but he was in a bit of pain. So, I absolutely wouldn't be surprised to see Jamal come back and hit that and beyond. I think he's tripled something even above what he attempted on that second in training. So, we saw Gavin hit that national record. We saw Meech. I think he missed one or two lifts, but is extremely promising in terms of hitting 880 with kilos left on the platform. Same goes for Brandon Jones, fresh out of the juniors. I think he came second at Junior Worlds last year. So, like the 83s, the 93s is incredibly stacked. And there was one point in the competition that, anybody watching, but I know Ryan, you and I were just pretty unsure in terms of who was walking away that bronze, maybe even a silver position, but definitely bronze. It could have been one of four names. It was tight.
I'm going to throw it to Matt, but Matt, as I ask you about some of the attempt selections, etc. So looking at this, Gavin Eden was having a phenomenal day. I know we finished off podium, but this is what the big three you're going to anticipate they're going to do. They're not here for podium. They're not here for solidifying silver. They're here to win it. Gavin loading up 355. Gavin has hit 350. This was by no means some crazy, it's a 5 kilo PR. Judging by how his squat moving, he's stronger. 355 wasn't this crazy ask. It's probably what you might have needed. And if you look at 355, that extra kilos that he would have had, that would have pushed Keiko. Now, Keiko's 357.5 was smooth, but this is PR territory for Keiko. It would have forced Keiko's hand into uncharted waters. Would Keiko have had it 357.5 moved? He might have anyways, but it would have made him answer that question, as well as Petrie missed his third lift, and it would have been over what Petrie was able to hit. It absolutely was the proper play in terms of where his third would be. And I know it was a big jump between his second and his third, but they wanted to conserve energy and go all in on that third because they're not there. They're not there to, let's try to get on the podium. No, we want to win. We want to go to the world championships. We believe 355 would overextend Petrie. They would have been right because Petrie had to pull less and it overextended him. And we want to overextend Keiko. And historically speaking, it would be more than Keiko would have been able to pull. Judging on 357.5, it might have still been there today on that day for Keiko. Keiko was on one. But I think it was well played by Gavin, who, believe it or not, was the lightest of those three gentlemen. He actually, body weight issues, long pass behind him, was the lightest of those three gentlemen. I think all three of these guys played it proper. Petrie didn't miss a single lift until his final deadlift, and Gavin played it right up until the final pull, missing that, going all in, falls off the podium and open the door for Dom to jump in with a 900 kilo total. And then what can you say about Jonathan Keiko? 9 for 9, probably room to spare a little bit everywhere. But when it comes to this, it's better have a little bit of room to spare and go 9 for 9 to build that total. I don't got to tell you, Matt. What were your thoughts on the 93s?
The reason that I thought that this was the best battle was just because of what we just discussed, right? In the 83s, we had somebody who on paper was clearly ahead of the rest of the field. We had Taylor Atwood, the GOAT, competing and so forth, who pushed the young man further than we thought that he was going to be pushed. But in this particular one, in the battle of the 93s, I truly don't think that anybody really knew who was going to win. I mean, with Keiko, to Amelia's point, good on him for taking the time off for physical and mental health reasons and just getting back to feeling great. But we didn't know what to expect. I mean, we saw the big gym total from Jonathan, but then we saw, kind of his lifts coming back down to earth with the cut, and so at least I kind of noticed those things. And so, the ever consistent, the two-time world champion, arguably the greatest 93 of all time. I mean, you could argue Christoph Wierzbicki because he's won more titles, but it's probably Keiko and so forth. You've got the returning national champion and Brandon Petrie with the huge deadlift. And then, oh, by the way, throw Gavin Aiden into the mix, who was the first guy to cross the 900 kilo barrier in terms of world record. And you've got all three of those guys. And the reason that this was the best battle in my mind's eye is because we didn't truly know, I think, who was going to win. And all the big three were a perfect 8 for 8. And that's exactly what you want to see from both a competitor standpoint to a spectator standpoint to a commentating standpoint. You want to see lifters execute well, call good attempts, not err, and then have their hands forced right at the end. And it's all going to get sorted out by that final deadlift. And I think each one of these competitors played it probably as good as they could have possibly played it. You can't begrudge Gavin for doing what he did. He had a world record and a chip to play in the squat. We figured that he was going to go back and forth with Jamar for that chip. And it's unfortunate that Jamar wasn't able to connect on those two squats. He was warming up on the platform right next to me because I was working with Dominique Fuqua. And I did talk to him after a second. To Amelia's point, he tweaked something in his back. Good on him for really going out there and giving it a ride on his third. I mean, that was probably a low probability make, but it's like, what might have changed had Jamar made his third one? But Gavin played it perfectly. And he opened light in the deadlift and took two big jumps. And that would have landed him on 921.5. And oh, by the way, I mean, that was a razor thin miss on Gavin's third pull. It just kind of popped out of his hands at the very top. So you can't begrudge them for the way that they played the game. That was a well-played game. And it would have put him on 921.5. And to your point, Ryan, would Keiko have had 360? Yeah, probably, given how the 357.5 moved. I thought they were a little conservative with Keiko's bench. My God, he benched 252 and it was easy. Like, I couldn't believe how comfortable that was. Like, it was just extraordinary how easy that looked to me, which bodes well for him going into Worlds. I mean, there's things that we can be certain of in life, death, taxes, and Jonathan Keiko, using a chip on the bench press. My goodness. But it's like, so clearly he's going to have that in his wheelhouse at Worlds. But there was more meat on the bone for Jonathan in the bench, and his deadlift has come around. Do I think he had the 360? Had Gavin made the 355? I do. Petrie, exquisite performance. Squat probably didn't show up, I think, the way that he wanted it to. He lost about 5 kilos after his PB squat. Don't begrudge them for their attempt selection. I think you'll recall, Ryan, Petrie's second squat looked a little funny. It was almost like he paused a little bit in the hole, looked a little wonky, if you will. And so they just took the 5 kilo increase. And then, of course, he sorted it out and it looked better than the second one. So, did he have a couple extra kilos there? Yeah, he probably did. The bench is close to PB territory, I believe, for Petrie. And again, Marcellus and team, they played that right the way that they should have. 389 is a really big ask. 372, I think, tied his personal best, but that moved pretty quickly.
Well,
I think
that was crazy.
He stood up with 372. I mean, clearly, look, he didn't pull the 389, but what is his PB now? Is it 385? I mean, it's 380 plus. I mean, clearly, it's 380 plus. So they played it perfectly. It's the only number to take at that point. And from the perspective of Dominique Fuqua, I teamed up with Dom and Steve Denovi, and Dom's only miss came on his second squat. We got called on depth, but we went up 5 kilos anyway, because at that point it's like, hey man, we figured, look, we're kind of on the outside of the big three looking in, but if we concede and repeat this, then we'll probably have no chance whatsoever. And then Dom came back and made it, and just had an exquisite performance. We were kind of able to sneak in there because of those misses from Gavin. And then, of course, to your point, Amelia, Meach, I mean, he went 8 for 8 and kind of loaded up there at the end with a big ask of 382.5. But that would have put him, in second place, because that would have, had he made that would have, he was lighter than Petrie. And so I think that's kind of what they were looking at there. That kid's put a lot on his total. So this was just an exquisite competition. It's just really exciting to see when you have so many people making lots of lifts, and then it all gets sorted in the last round of polls. And I think, just as a fan of the sport and as a fan of competition, that, at least from my perspective, that's what you want to see. You want to see that cream rise to the top. You want to see it come down to the very end. You don't want these blowouts. Ryan, you always use the example. It's like people start to tune out when somebody's ahead by 40, 50 kilos. It's not as fun. But the engagement to be able to watch something like this unfold is just really extraordinary. So for me, this was the best session. And just credit to Jonathan Kaiko doing Jonathan Kaiko things, going 9 for 9. It's like him to make lots of lifts. I think he posted in his Instagram story, he's only missed 3 lifts in the past. I don't know how many competitions. So yeah, it's going to be incredible when he goes to Worlds and he's got 2 guys there waiting for him who are just as capable and just as worthy. That'll be a lot of, yep.
Emil did 9:17.5 months ago. They are neck and neck.
Gustav's right there.
Gustav did 9:15 months ago. They are all neck and neck, jogging right beside each other. There's no clear leader in this pack. Anybody can win. Right. Can't wait for Worlds. Yeah, you and Steve did an excellent job with Dom. You did exactly what you had to do, where play it close, and your move on squats, 100% co-sign it. You know what you're doing. You're anticipating if someone in the big three is going to push too far, and once one of them misses, the door swings open. And you did exactly that happen, and you got him onto the podium. And that can happen. You see it all the time. Yeah. Whenever somebody is just in the pack below the big, whether it's the big three, the big whatever, play close enough. You miss a lift, sometimes you got to go up anyways. Play it close enough. Those guys, or the ladies, depending on what the situation is, are going to push each other. And because they're pushing each other like they are and it's so close, someone's going to miss. And that's your opportunity to eat their food. And you guys did an excellent job keeping them close enough. Opportunity arose. He ends up on the podium in a battle like this. And Meach, he's the future as well. That kid is freaking gaining fast. And he was ever so close on his last pull as well to having a big upset. All those 3 below the big 3, next year it won't be the big 3, it'll be the big 6.
Yeah.
Or more. It's going to be like the 83s were. It's going to be like the 83s, where it's just 1 through 6. Depending on any given day, anybody can win. Phenomenal battle. Let's move on to the 105s, because we could probably do an hour straight of the 93s. 105s. Wow. Anthony McNaughton ruining Keenan Lee's honeymoon. Holy freaking smokes. Keenan Lee came on the podcast. I love the bold talk. He was saying to his girl, look, we're getting married in April. told his girl, when you're planning a honeymoon, you might as well plan it around Europe in June because we're going to be in Germany in June. And then he said, oh, by the way, don't worry about putting UK in that European tour for a honeymoon because we'll probably be in the UK for Sheffield after that. And I ain't mad at that kind of bold talk whatsoever. I know it didn't work out that way, but this is how legends are made. Step up to the plate and call your shots. So I still say, hats off to Keenan Lee, super duper strong. But the day ended up being Anthony McNaughton's with 979 as his body weight was 103. To add a little bit of clarity, Bob Matthews did less to win the world championships last year. And yes, it's more than the 120 world record, but I get the reason why I like saying it was more than Bob Matthews' world title win last year is because Rondell Hunt exists and it still is a thorn in my side. The fact that his title, his record isn't the world record. It's so far beyond. Like we have a 120 who did 1045. Okay. So Anthony McNaughton out totaled all the other 120s at Worlds, but he definitely is not out totaling all the other 120s, period, because Rondell Hunt exists. Anyways, I don't want to get super duper into that, but it just adds some clarity on just how freaking strong Anthony McNaughton is. He out totaled every single 120. If we gave Bob all of those roses we did, which we should, Bob Matthews is a phenomenal talent, given the body weight he is, doing what he did at last year's Worlds. And he's earned that. Anthony McNaughton earns all of that credit as well, all those accolades. At 103, 979, that's freaking incredible. Not only did he best Keenan Lee, who's a phenomenal talent, but he's besting all the other 120s from last year. He's besting what Bob Matthews did. Everything we said about Bob Matthews and how special he is, we got to say about Anthony McNaughton now. And I am recording a podcast with Anthony McNaughton later on this evening, and that's going to drop as well later on this week. And I can't wait to get his background story and get the drums beating for that young man. Because holy freaking smokes, talking about a coming out party for Anthony McNaughton. What do you think about this, Matt? Anthony McNaughton, 979 at a body weight of 103.
So first of all, let me just say from the perspective of I was working with Keenan Lee. I collaborated with he and Joe Stanek in the morning session. And so it was unfortunate, according to the rules, which I think we can all agree are kind of silly rules, that they weren't able to lift head to head in prime time. I think that's what we all want to see, just being fans of the sport, is two lifters lifting together, going head to head, making the attempt selection changes and so on and so forth. And it's just different when you're going head to head and in the moment and there's chips in play and so on and so forth. But as it were, Keenan had to run his race in the morning, and then Anthony had the opportunity to run his race and have a static number to shoot for in the evening session. And so from Keenan's perspective, we went 8 for 9 during the daytime. He pulled his adductor on his final pull with the 373. I think, again, hindsight 2020, we grabbed the chip on that second deadlift. That was a little bit probably too aggressive of a jump there, but nevertheless, we got it. And then he felt something in his adductor on his third attempt and wasn't able to finish it. Then and ended on a 958.5 total. And then you have Anthony come in the evening, has the body weight advantage, and also has the distinct advantage of knowing the number that he has to shoot for. But he and John Song, clearly they put together a great prep, a great strategy. They were bang on with their attempt selection and to the tune of 979 kilos, which is extraordinary. Like you said, Ryan, it's 0.5 kilos better than what Dennis Cornelius has done, which is the existing world record at 120. So just an extraordinary performance. And right after, Joe Stanek was in the audience and he came around and we met eyes and we both kind of looked at each other and came to the same conclusion and said, matter of factly, it would not have mattered. Anthony classy. McNaughton was, and totally classy, right? I think Keenan would be willing to admit that as well. Anthony McNaughton came in and was the stronger lifter on the day. And I think even though he had the advantage of lifting later and knowing, he proved it to the tune of beating Keenan by 20.5 kilos. He was stronger in the squat, stronger in the bench, and a half kilo stronger in the deadlift. And so, had it been head to head, perhaps it would have been a little bit closer. But respectfully, I don't think it would have mattered. Anthony McNaughton was the stronger lifter on the day. And it's really exciting to see Anthony come full circle, after competing USAPL and then doing the Powerlifting America thing. And I mean, he's no stranger to international competition. He has competed, at a junior world championships. We saw him compete in Turkey in 2022, and he came in as the favorite and unfortunately didn't make a squat until his third squat. Well, it certainly seems like he's been able to now right the ship, right? And we see this just pristine performance out of him. And it's exciting because now he's the number one nominated lifter by a mile at the World Championships. But he's going to have to tangle with some, he's going to have to deal with the international travel and all these things. But all credit goes to Anthony McNaughton and his coach, John Song. They played it perfectly. He was the stronger lifter on the day. And to the victor goes the spoils. So all credit to those guys. It's exciting.
And if we're gonna bring up Keenan Lee ahead of time, being super duper ambitious on the podcast, we also have to bring up the humbleness that he was after he was done lifting earlier that day. He actually did an interview and straight up said, "I don't think it's enough. I think Anthony's got this." And that's before Anthony even lifted. He said, "You know what? If I'm completely honest," so he was humble. He's a classy guy himself. He knows how to hop on the podcast, be confident, and sell. But in reality, he's a classy competitor, and he's not done. I mean, he had a bad day, but we say bad day. He had a phenomenal day. It just wasn't good enough because you had an all-time historic performance by Anthony McNaughton. Keenan Lee is world class. I can't wait to see what these gentlemen end up doing. Amelia, what do you think about the emergence of Anthony McNaughton? It kind of seems overnight, but holy freaking smokes, we all know Bob Matthews and how much love Bob Matthews gets, and he did better than Bob Matthews at a lighter body weight. People got clapped by a 103.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think what he did was like historic and outstanding, and I still somehow feel like it's not getting the attention that it deserves because he made it look so comfortable and so easy that I think people didn't quite realize what monumental feat he was doing. Like you said, both Keenan and Anthony finish over what the world record total is, which belongs to Anatoly from Lithuania last year, and 940.5. To your point earlier, Anthony Norton out-totaled the 120 world record, which other than the 59 kilo world record for Fedchenko total, they're the two longest standing records from Killeen, Texas, in 2016. And so to see a 105 very, very casually out total the world record, the longest standing world record in the 120s, the weight class above is insane. Hats off to Keenan as well, of course, hitting above that world record. But Anthony is honestly out of this world, and I cannot put enough emphasis on how casual he made that 979 look. And it's extremely exciting to think, because he is relatively new to the scene, what he could do. I don't think asking for, 21 more kilos on top of that in a good chunk of time is a huge ask. To see a 105 hit 1,000 kilos would be pretty insane. I mean, more than pretty insane. It would be unfathomable, and it seems fathomable. So I think I would have loved to have seen, circumstances didn't allow it, but them go head to head, same flight. The case in podcast of you guys chatting later, hearing his story, it's insane. He deserves all the credit and all the love for that performance he put up, and I hope that people start recognizing the talent that he is, more so leading into Worlds, but definitely in Germany in 2 weeks' time.
Anthony McNaughton, let me also say, met him for the first time in person at US Nats. This dude's back is the size of a billboard. I cannot believe how freaking thick and jacked this gentleman is. I looked over at Pete Spence as he's walking off the platform, and we both were like, some people, when you meet them in person, they are physical freaks. When you meet them, it's humbling. You're like, yeah, there are people like this walking around this world. They're special. But of course, you're a power lifter. But of course, you found this sport and you're doing what you're doing. Incredibly, he's a phenomenal athlete. And I 100% agree that he's not going to get the love and attention he deserves yet. That's going to change. We're going to tell his story on the King of List podcast. So everybody who listens globally in the powerlifting community is going to hear about him. They saw him on the platform. Now we'll get his background story. We'll start getting the drums beating for the world championships. And then at the world championships, he's gonna do some crazy things, and everyone's gonna be talking about him, just like they were Bob. And if he does what he's capable of, we'll be looking at Sheffield, and we all know what that kind of exposure does. So his life is about to change in 2025. He's not going to be operating like he was before. Everything's going to change. He's going to be on everybody's radar real quick, real soon. Hats off to him. And Keenan Lee will be back. Great battle there. And you guys want to move into the 120s? Okay.
Yes,
so Devin Williams coming into this, he had some, I don't want to get into too deep into his personal life, but definitely things were impacting him on the personal side that would impact his training greatly. He wasn't going to be 100%. As it were, he didn't need to be 100% to clinch the U.S. national title with 945.5 and also clinch his world team spot. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Big Dev, phenomenal lifter, will have an opportunity to go to the world championships and represent USA. Jaden Edwards with 917.5 in the silver medal, and Mike Tashir, who's born in 85, taking the bronze medal. Mike, also a super nice guy, 902.5. And Jaden, he missed 3 attempts here. Had he got a little bit different attempt selection, or if he had nailed those, who the frick knows where his total might be. So let's see what he ends up. Let's see what happens when he goes 9 for 9. Jaden's got a lot of potential, and he's also, by the way, as a 120, he weighed in at 113. So if he throws on another 5+ kilos on body weight, he goes 9 for 9. And he's born in 2001, young man. He's got a ton of future. However, the day of belongs to Devin, Big Dev, whom clinched the title, and it's going to go to Worlds. And by the time Worlds rolls around, we anticipate he'll be in top form. Where that ends up, who knows? But 9 for 9. Matt, what are you thinking about the 120s? And then, of course, we'll talk about Rondell Hunt.
Yeah, I think that, it was exciting to see, to your point, Ryan, you mentioned that Devin had a lot of external factors, going on in his life that were bigger than powerlifting. And so clearly this is, he went 9 for 9 and he lifted exceptionally well, but this was under his all-time best performance, but he didn't need it, right? And so he was able to still get the job done, represent himself well, make 9 lifts, and walk away national champion. And oh, by the way, qualify to make the national team to go to Worlds. So punched his ticket, outstanding. Hit a record there on the bench. If I recall correctly, I thought that third bench was kind of easy as well. Looked like he had some more kilos in the tank too. I don't think that was quite a limit lift, if I'm not mistaken. Jaden Edwards, who came in second. Yeah, sky's the limit for this kid. I mean, to your point, Ryan, weighed in as a really, really light 120, only 113.93. And you add in the misses, I mean, if there was a time when Devin was right, to be picked there, plucked from the top, this might have been it, right? Coming in with all these externals. And so it just begs the question, we add in Jaden's misses, that's 30 kilos, then he's right there at 947.5. Clearly, Dev would have changed his attempt selection to combat that and to contest it and so on and so forth. But it just, yeah. So, I mean, Jaden still totally 917, and really happy for Mike Tushir. I mean, I was able to coach Mike on the day. and just an extraordinary performance from Mike. We really didn't have our sights set on the podium. So it was kind of one of these things where Mike, matter of factly, wanted to shoot for a post-injury return PB. He wanted to break the 900 kilo threshold. His lone miss came on that third bench, which was just it was one of these 50-50 calls where, there was a little awkward motion on the bar, and clearly the referees thought that the bar was moved down, but based on his second attempt, I mean, 212.5 was the right number. He destroyed his benches, and the 212 moved quite well until the very end. But so really excited that Mike was able to hit that 365 kilo deadlift on the final pull. And if you remember, Ryan and Amelia, that was like truly a limit lift out of Mike. That third deadlift, I mean, his knees were shaking. The bar kind of stalled right around the knee. And then he was able to just gut it out and grit it out to the tune of a 902.5 kilo performance, which netted us the bronze medal. And it was really exciting. And of course, off the podium was Reagan Henderson. No other number to load for Reagan than that 372.5. That's not a bad call. He was batting 1,000 at that point. He was 8 for 8, perfect. And the 22.5 kilos would have put him there. Obviously in second place, behind Dev, but ahead of Jaden. So not a bad attempt call there. That was the right number to go for. But yeah, this was just an exciting session to watch, and a lot of fun. And I'm really thrilled for Dev, because it's his first. He's competed at NAPFs where he set the world record in the bench press, but now he can take that world record bench press and put it on an IPF platform in Germany, and it'll be really exciting to see. And just really happy for him because just a super nice guy and a quality human being.
Amelia, let's talk about Rondell Hunt. Now, Rondell Hunt was a guest lifter, but he loaded up huge on his last deadlift, loading up 412.5. Now, that would have been the biggest deadlift in the IPF. Obviously, unofficially, it would have been the world record. This is a national level, but we've seen him pull 425 in prep. He had a very tight timeline to prep for this. I mean, the turnaround was quick. He pulled 425. He was hitting huge lifts in training, not knowing, peaking way early, but he didn't know he was going to be competing here in Powerlifting America. And then after he found out, he's like, oh my gosh, because he had posted about the 425. I think that pull created generational fatigue. His central nervous system was cooked. As you'd expect, 425 kilo deadlift, that is absolutely freaking insane. Still, under those conditions, 1010, 1,010 kilo total as a 120. Rondell Hunt is the strongest 120 alive or that ever existed. He is an absolutely special and gifted human being. I freaking hope we see him on the international platform as quickly as possible, because all of these records, it kills me when we talk about the world records and we can't be saying Rondell Hunt's total. Absolutely kills me that this is the case. Rondell Hunt exists. And, and as long as I got my feet on the ground, people are going to hear about Rondell Hunt and realize he exists. But talk to me about this performance, Amelia. Rondell Hunt reestablishing he's the greatest 120 in the world, and right down to that very final pull.
Yeah, and again, like Anthony McNaughton, it was one of those performances that you forget how phenomenal it is because of how he lifts, and how casual he makes those amazing, like incredibly large amount of weight move. Um, just to put it in perspective, I know this next sentence I'm going to say has a lot of moving parts, so hopefully I say it in a way that doesn't get all jumbled up. If he had got that last deadlift and Ray missed his last deadlift, he would have out-totaled Ray Williams, just to put in perspective of how strong Rondell was with a quick turnaround of a prep. So that's not even Rondell having the time and the space and the effort to put in a full steam prep heading into nationals. That was oh shoot, I'm competing. All right, I'll switch on and I'll turn towards comp mode. And like you said, with that 425, creating that generational fatigue, that would have left some marks into that prep. Um, it was it bodes very well for the future of international competition when he does get that chance to re-enter that stage. And I think probably globally the 120s are very aware that day is going to come. And so they're pushing their totals up as much as they can in the meantime, which by the way, the 120s globally right now are not, it's not a weak weight class by any means. You take Rondell out of the picture, which at the moment he is, the top total nominated is by a 20-year-old Nonso at 965. So it's not like he's at the end of his tether. It's not like he's found his peak strength. So, right now the 120s is still highly contested, but when Rondell enters it's going to change the game of powerlifting entirely. And it was definitely uh, quite the performance he put up to give us a little glimpse into that future. And obviously, just quickly circle around to Dev, great performance from him. And, I'm sure in the next 10 weeks, we'll see him put some more onto that total, as well as probably extend, if all goes well, his world record bench in Germany. So, phenomenal day from him and Mikey, who coaches him on the day.
Let me also just say, I think it just caught my attention because we're saying the podium. If we could double back for a second here, 105s, Kevin Paul with 902.5, wrapping up the podium for the 105s. And honestly, 902.5 in a 105 kilo class is a good total. So Kevin Paul from Texas did a great job in getting onto the podium in the 105s, not to be lost in. Obviously, we had some big hitters in Anthony McNaughton and Keenan Lee. And with Anthony doing what he did, it casts a big shadow, but we have to give respect's due to Kevin Paul with a good performance. But yeah, doubling back to the 120s, you're absolutely right. We got to get Rondell back onto the international scene, but by the time he makes it onto the international scene, Nonzo, my God. I mean, look, I'll stay on pace. I'm not going to pull us off here. We'll stay on U.S. Nationals recap, but Nonzo might be ready. Timing is everything, and Nonzo might be 1,000 kilo totaler himself, and Rondell better be in top form by the time they clash. We'll put a pin in that discussion. But you talked about the possibility that Rondell came close. It looked like might have been out totaling Ray, but Ray, that's a nice segue here. He ended up having a day. Ray Williams, 1,060 kilos, 9 for 9 for performance, big 460, hit it clean, wrapping up a good performance by Big Ray. Matt, obviously you handling Ray like you usually do. Tell me about Ray's performance.
Yeah, this was just what the doctor ordered. I mean, considering his circumstances now, Ray has transitioned to Virginia. I think it's well known. He's a gym owner, and so his time is being pulled in a million different directions. He's a family man, and none of those things are excuses. He's just got a lot of externals. There was a time during Ray's prep. We were anticipating a much bigger total, quite frankly. I'm not going to lie. This was an outstanding performance. It's the best total that he's put together since the mishap in Sweden. And so it's really exciting to see him make all of his lifts in total 1060. Having said that, earlier on in the prep, by every single metric, he was on pace to hit a really big squat. I'm talking world record squat. We took a shot at the world record at NEPFs last year, and he wasn't able to securely set his feet properly. And under that kind of load and with the bar behaving like it does, when you have that much weight, if you don't get your feet set right, it's going to be a mess. And so that was it wasn't a strength issue last year. It was just a technical issue in terms of him not being able to connect the dots on that squat. But we were projecting a world record squat or a shot at the world record, unofficial world record squat for Ray. But in the last couple of weeks leading up to this, he had to host some competitions at his facility. And for anybody that's ever been a meet director and moved equipment and so on and so forth, you understand what a labor that is and how much that physically takes out of you, and especially a man of his size. So we tempered our enthusiasms. We curbed our enthusiasm, if you will, and decided to kind of pull it down a little bit to the tune of 460. I think if you kind of look at the attempt, you're like, wow, that was a quite easy third attempt. That bar just seemed to be moving a lot on his back. Ray hurt his elbow during prep, And so that's why the bench was down. And so Ray wasn't able to kind of crank the bar down and get the bar and pull the bar down on his back like he normally is because of the elbow injury. And therefore, the bar appeared whippier to us. It seemed like the bar was moving around a lot on his back under that load, and more so than usual. I've seen so many of his squats, thousands of his squats, obviously from reviewing training footage. And I just thought, man, this is because he can't kind of lock his back. So we pulled something off of his squat. He squatted 460. The bench was down a little bit. And then he hit a nice, beltless PB deadlift, if you will, to the tune of 375 kilos. Again, earlier in the prep, we were projecting if all the stars had aligned and he hadn't hurt his elbow and he had gone 8 for 8, and I know that that's a lot of ifs. I was going to say we are going to load up and try to eclipse what Jesus did at Sheffield. And I think there was a path to that place, but life gets in the way and there's no excuses. And so, but we're just excited to see Ray put together a performance like this and come to a nationals and become a national championship once again. And then, we had Robert Lazarin coming in second place to the tune of 952 and a half. A good performance from him. His lifts looked comfortable. The lone miss that he had was that final deadlift, at 365. And then, of course, there was another big gap there. And it looks like we had Robert Parisi in third, and his lone miss was a big attempt on a third squat at 407 and a half. So that was kind of the podium, as it were. But yeah, just really thrilled for Ray. And just tracking back to 1 second to Rondell Hunt, to Amelia's point, had Ray missed the third deadlift, and Rondell hit that final pull. And I think that was the only pull for him to take, right? I think everybody in the building, or at least Rondell was warming up on our platform. So I kind of looked at him he had this coy grin and this cheeky smile. And I said, I know what you're up to. And so I kind of knew what he was doing all along, and he had created so much fatigue, to your point, Ryan and Amelia leading in, and then all of a sudden had to turn around and compete after kind of peaking too soon during training. But yeah, had he hit that third pull, it would have given him a 1047 and a half kilo PB total, which would have been 2.5 kilos over what he did in Memphis when he lifted at USAPL Nationals. So again, just to tie a ribbon around it, excited for Ray, also excited for Rondell. To your point, Ryan, really do want to see him on an international stage. Lord knows all the crap that he's been through. He deserves it. He's an absolute gentleman. He's the strongest 120 we've ever seen. He's the strongest 120 walking the planet, and arguably, the best lifter on the planet. I mean, you can make a really strong case for Rondell, given the amount of weight that he lifts, at a light body weight of 119 and change. It's just an extraordinary human being. So, yeah.
Can you imagine if Ray Williams would have out-totaled the total that Jesus put up at Sheffield and Ray Williams was going to the World Championships? Can you freaking imagine if Ray Williams won another world title?
Well,
that would have been insane. And he's born in 86. He turns 40 next year. It's crazy.
And I know that there's a lot of ifs. I threw out a ton of ifs there. So I'm not saying that, don't get me wrong, right? Don't mix words. I'm just saying that he incurred an injury during prep. Had he not incurred that injury, he was pacing. I mean, by every metric available, tracking all of his training, he was on pace to potentially eclipse what Jesus had done at Sheffield. And I would be remiss as his coach if we hadn't been pacing, and we were 8 for 8 to not at least put it on the bar and attempt it with the third deadlift. And, we would have had a chip available in the squat. And that's why I say we would have needed to eclipse, I think it was 1112.5, which it would have been a PB total for Ray. But he was trending in that way. So it's exciting to see Ray kind of on the mend, kind of get his mojo back and put together a 9 for 9 performance.
Joey B ended up taking best lifter. And Joey B, obviously, this was a massive performance for him. So hats off to Joey B. I mean, a freaking superstar. Amelia, you're all smiles there. Some of you wanted to, all right. Just happy all around. Eh?
No, it was just good lifting from all around. Good job, everyone.
Right.
Yep.
All right. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. Do we have any other notes we want to add, or is that pretty much, I think we nailed everything.
That's it.
Perfect. Well, listen, everybody, I hope you enjoyed our U.S. Nationals recaps. As per usual, please do subscribe, give us high ratings, and until next time, six pack Lapadat, six up, and we are out.